Welcome to This Explainer. You know, as an experienced female founder who has literally been through the ringer of building companies from the ground up, I can tell you firsthand that the startup world is just incredibly romanticized. We hear so much about these overnight successes, genius ideas, and billion-dollar valuations, right? But the reality of what it actually takes to build a startup, that is rarely talked about clearly. So today we're going to completely strip away those myths. We're looking at the pragmatic, step-by-step realities of the startup journey, so you can step into this arena with confidence, authority, and most importantly, your eyes wide open. So I want to start with a question that trips up almost everyone. Picture this. Someone opens a brand new, beautiful coffee shop right on the corner, or maybe they launch a freelance graphic design service. Is that a startup? Well, most people use the word startup to describe absolutely any new business. But think again. A new small business and a startup are absolutely not the same thing, and misunderstanding this difference will fundamentally derail how you approach building one right from day one. All right, here is the roadmap for our explainer today. First, we'll cover the real startup definition. Second, why you must fall in love with problems. Third, validate before you build. Fourth, teams, funding, and scaling. And finally, your first practical steps today. Okay, let's dive right into Section 1, the real startup definition. Here's the crucial difference. A small business, like our coffee shop, starts with a known model. The outcomes are, relatively predictable. You know roughly what the rent costs, what coffee beans cost, and exactly how many lattes you need to sell to hit a clear path to profit. A startup, however, operates in pure uncertainty. As a founder, you're starting with a massive question mark. You have a hypothesis, sure, but you don't actually know if people will pay for it or if the whole thing can scale. Startups aren't executing a plan. They're actively searching for a repeatable, scalable business model. And actually, once you finally find that model, you stop being a startup and just become a regular company. You are searching for a plan, not executing one. Moving right along to Section 2, fall in love with problems. The number one mistake first-time founders make is falling completely in love with their own idea. But here is the hard truth. Ideas are cheap. Literally, everyone has them. What actually separates a wildly successful startup from a graveyard of failed ones is whether your idea solves a real, agonizing problem that people genuinely care about. A real problem is something people are already spending way too much time or money trying to fix. Like if they're hacking together giant, messy spreadsheets because they desperately need automation, that is a goldmine. If nobody is currently trying to solve the problem you've identified, well, it probably just isn't painful enough for them to pay you for a solution. So how do you actually find these golden problems? You have to become an incredibly observant listener. Talk to people. Watch how they work in their daily lives. Ask them what frustrates them, what takes way too long, and what costs too much. And here is my biggest piece of advice as a mentor. Do not pitch your solution to them yet. Seriously, just listen. The most successful founders don't start by saying, hey, I have a great idea. They start by saying, I notice people struggling with this specific thing, and I just think there has to be a better way. Which brings us to Section 3. Validate before you build. The sequence that kills most startups goes a little something like this. You get an idea, you get incredibly excited, you spend 9 months in your entire life savings building a product, you launch it, and crickets. Nobody cares. You built something nobody asked for. The ultimate antidote to this heartbreak is validation. Validation means finding concrete evidence that real people will literally open their wallets and pay for your solution before you ever build it. Finding out the truth early and cheaply is infinitely better than wasting a year of your life on a guess. Now, what's really interesting is how practical these validation techniques actually are. First, talk to strangers. And I mean strangers, not your friends and family, because they love you and they will absolutely lie to you to protect your feelings. Second, create a simple landing page describing the solution before you write a single line of code. Third, run a smoke test. Basically, advertise the product as if it already exists. If people click buy, you can just politely tell them it's not ready yet. Yes, they might be a little annoyed, but you just proved real demand. Finally, try selling the service manually. If you want to build an automated meal planning app, manually curate meal plans for 10 people and charge them. If they pay for the manual service, for sure they'll pay for the app. Once you actually have validation, then you build a minimum viable product, or MVP. Notice the word minimum. It is not a half-finished product. It's the absolute smallest version that still delivers the core value, built strictly to learn how customers behave. Take Zappos, for example. The founder didn't start by building this massive warehouse of shoes. He literally walked into local shoe stores, took photos of shoes, and put them on a basic website. When an order came in, he went back to the store, bought the shoes at full retail price, and shipped them at a loss. He lost money on every single sale, But he brilliantly validated that people were willing to buy shoes online. And you know what? That knowledge was absolutely priceless. Let's move on to section 4, teams, funding, and scaling. Startups need fuel, right? And that usually means funding. Now, you can bootstrap, meaning you self-fund and keep total control of the whole shebang. You can turn to friends and family, but be incredibly careful mixing money in relationships. Definitely get it in writing. Angel investors are wealthy individuals who might give you $10,000 to $100,000 for a piece of ownership called equity. Venture capital firms provide millions, but they demand massive equity and expect your company to grow 10 to 100 times in size. Finally, there's crowdfunding, usually for consumer products. But hear this clearly. Investment is not free money. Every single dollar costs you ownership. The absolute best funding you will ever get is revenue directly from actual paying customers.
And how do you use that funding efficiently?
Well, you throw out the traditional 5-year business plan. Honestly, you can't project 5 years out when you operate in pure uncertainty. Instead, you use the lean startup loop. Build, measure, learn. You build a small test for a hypothesis, you measure how customers react, you learn from the data, and then you adjust. This rapid cycle leads to what we call pivots, which are vital changes in direction based on reality. Fun fact, did you know YouTube actually started as a video dating site? Slack was an internal communication tool for a failing gaming company. Instagram was a cluttered check-in app. They didn't stubbornly stick to a rigid plan, they pivoted based on learning. So the crucial point is that all of this building, measuring, learning, and pivoting is driving toward one single monumental milestone. Product market fit. This is the magical moment when your product perfectly matches exactly what a specific market desperately wants and needs. It's when the market basically starts pulling the product out of your hands faster than you can even create it. But you cannot reach product market fit alone. You need a phenomenal team. I can tell you from experience, investors will gladly fund a great team with a decent idea over a decent team with a brilliant idea. Why? Because you need complementary skills, someone who can build the product and someone who can sell it. You need fundamentally shared values. And most importantly, you need deep resilience and total honesty. Startups aren't emotional roller coaster guys. One day you land a massive client, and the next day your lead engineer just quits. Surrounding yourself with yes people is a complete recipe for disaster. You need a team that trusts each other enough to tell the hard truths. And when you do have a great team and a great product, you've got to beware of the most dangerous myth in the startup world, that you must grow at all costs immediately. Premature scaling, like hiring aggressively and spending big on marketing before you have true product market fit, is literally like pouring expensive gasoline on a fire that hasn't even started yet. You must wait for clear signals. Wait until your customers are coming back, referring friends, and your unit economics actually make sense before you hit that gas pedal. Finally, Section 5, your first steps today. Now, before taking those first steps, we have to accept a sober reality. Roughly 90% of startups fail. The journey takes twice as long and costs twice as much as you ever anticipate. You need to start this entire process with your eyes wide open, recognizing that this is definitely not a fairy tale. But please, do not let that number discourage you, because here is the empowering truth. The experience of founding a startup is a compounding asset. Even if your first attempt falls into that 90%, the intense real-world education you receive is just unmatched. The resilience, the leadership, the sheer problem-solving skills you develop, they make you a fundamentally stronger professional. Many of the most successful founders in the world built their empires only after their first ventures completely collapsed. So if you're sitting on an idea right now, just waiting for the perfect time, let me free you from that burden. The perfect time does not exist. Here is your pragmatic 6-step playbook to start right now. Step 1, write the problem you are solving in a single sentence. If you can't, you don't really understand it yet. Step 2, find 5 real people with this pain and just listen to them. Step 3, describe your solution and ask if they would genuinely pay for it. Step 4, build the simplest possible test, a landing page or manual service. Step 5, evaluate the results with brutal honesty. Avoid the sunk cost trap. And step 6, iterate. Let reality, not your assumptions, guide your decisions. At the end of the day, startups are not about raising millions or being some misunderstood genius. They're about listening hard, adapting fast, and stubbornly staying in the game to solve real problems for real people. You now have the playbook. The only thing left to answer is this: what problem will you start solving today?